Okay, picture this. You're sitting upstairs and you hear it. That unmistakable sound of rushing water coming from right beneath your feet. It's chaotic, it's stressful, and honestly, it usually happens at the absolute worst possible time. But today, we're going to transform that sheer panic into methodical action. Let's dive right into this explainer on managing a flooded basement. We're using a rapid triage approach, pulling this straight from the emergency playbook of smart housing systems. We are going to break down exactly how to handle this crisis step by step, turning a potential disaster into a totally controlled response.
So first things first, is your basement flooding right now? Like at this exact moment? Because if it is, we really need to acknowledge the high anxiety of the situation and just ground ourselves for a second. Human instinct absolutely screams at us to rush down there, right? To save the family photo albums or that crazy expensive home theater setup, but you have to completely override that instinct. If the water is actively rising, your safety and your family's safety must completely override saving your belongings. The water isn't going anywhere, but one wrong move in a flooded environment, that can literally be fatal. So let's establish our game plan.
Phase 1, Immediate Threat Assessment. We're entering the first and absolutely most critical phase of our triage framework. For these next few minutes, our focus is on 100% on life-threatening immediate dangers. Before we even think about grabbing mops or buckets, we have to secure the perimeter. Step 1, assess the room from a safe distance. If the water is rising, do not walk into it. Seriously, especially if you suspect it might be energized. Immediately lock down the area. Keep your pets and kids far, far away. Step 2 is turning off the power, but, and this is a massive caveat here, you only attempt to shut off the power if it is completely safe to do so. And Step 3, you must avoid coming into contact with dangerous water at all costs. Don't touch the outlets, don't touch appliances, and whatever you do, don't touch any submerged cords.
Let's look a little closer at the life or death stakes of shutting off that power. If you're standing on completely dry ground, well away from the floodwater, you can safely flip the main breaker. But if you see sparks, hear a buzzing sound, smell anything burning, or if you have to actually step into the flooded area to reach the panel, stop immediately. That is a hard stop. You don't push it. You pick up the phone and call an electrician or your local utility company right then and there.
Now, we often just think of floodwater as, extra rain, but we really need to define exactly what makes water contaminated. If that water came from a backed-up drain or has literally any sewage involvement whatsoever, it is highly hazardous. This brings us to a really strict rule. If you absolutely must be near it, you have to wear protective gear. We're talking proper rubber boots and heavy-duty gloves. Do not let this water touch your bare skin, ever.
Phase 2, stopping the bleed and triage. Once the immediate life safety threats are completely secured, we transition from pure caution to empowerment. We shift from just observing the disaster to actively stopping the water and beginning the extraction process. Now, your action here depends entirely on the source. If the flood is coming from inside the house like a broken pipe, a burst water heater, or maybe a leaking HVAC line, you need to shut off the main water supply to the house immediately. Just cut it off at the source. But if the water is breaching the foundation from the outside during a massive storm, well, you can't exactly turn off a valve for that. In that case, you attempt to safely redirect it. You might try moving items away from the entry points or setting up temporary barriers, but, and this is key, only if you can do so without compromising those safety rules we laid out back in Phase 1.
With the source addressed, we move straight into extraction. Step 1 is a deliberate echo of our earlier warning. Confirm the power is actually off. You do not plug in a wet vac until you are absolutely certain the grid to that room is completely dead. Once you confirm that, Step 2 is physically removing the water by pumping or vacuuming it out. And Step 3 is deploying fans and dehumidifiers. But I want to strongly remind you here, you only start moving your wet belongings to a dry area after that power is definitively confirmed off. Getting that space dry quickly, that is the name of the game right now.
Phase 3, the invisible threats.
So, slowing down the pace just a bit, we really need to recognize that even if the standing water is gone, the emergency definitely isn't over. We need to shift our focus to the diligence required for your insurance company and those invisible, creeping threats left behind by the moisture. Look, before you throw a single soggy box away, you need to document everything to streamline your insurance claims. Take really wide photos and videos showing the exact water levels. Look for those dirty water lines on the walls. Take close-up images of damaged areas and your expensive key items. And keep every single receipt for cleanup supplies, wet vac rentals, dehumidifiers, the whole shebang. Doing this diligently right now is going to save you massive headaches when you're dealing with the claims adjuster later on.
And it's super important to realize that it doesn't take weeks for your basement to turn into a hazardous environment. Trapped moisture encourages mold to grow within a matter of days. Days! That is your extremely tight window to get this environment completely dry.
It's literally a race against time. To prevent mold, you must keep the air moving, maintain really aggressive dehumidification, and constantly monitor the moisture levels. And here's a harsh reality warning. If you have heavily soaked, porous materials, things like drywall or fiberglass insulation, simply blowing air on them might not cut it. They act like massive sponges, and honestly, they may need complete removal by professionals to stop mold from thriving right inside your walls.
Phase 4. Knowing when to call the pros.
Look, you do not have to tackle this entirely on your own. It's absolutely crucial to know exactly when a DIY response just isn't cutting it anymore and it's time to escalate. If the water's exceptionally deep, if the electrical risks are still unclear or you couldn't safely hit that breaker, if there's any sewage involvement whatsoever, if you spot significant structural damage, or if you simply cannot achieve that super fast drying time we talked about earlier, call for backup. Restoration teams are armed with industrial pumps, commercial-grade extraction equipment, and precise moisture measurement tools that the average homeowner just doesn't have lying around.
So, wrapping up the immediate response, your final steps are all about vigilance. As the drying process continues, continually monitor the space for any hidden or ongoing leaks. Keep removing those soaked items, get them completely out of the house to reduce overall humidity, and stay in tight coordination with your insurance company.
But what if you think you've done everything right, and then a week later you notice something is just off? There's a vital rule here. Stop your DIY efforts immediately if you notice lingering musty odors, or if visible mold actually starts to appear on the baseboards or walls. Lingering odors mean moisture is still trapped in there, and it's time to call in remediation pros. Professional 24/7 services, like Smart Housing Systems, have dispatchers ready around the clock at numbers like 224-754-1984. By telling them exactly what caused the flood, whether it was storm runoff, a sump pump failure, or a burst pipe, they can tailor a highly specific, totally safe remediation plan for your exact situation.
Which brings us to our final thought. Your basement might be perfectly dry today, but are you actually ready for tomorrow? Floods don't operate on a schedule, right? They strike when you're sleeping, when you're stuck at work, or during literally the worst storm of the year. Memorizing this emergency plan before disaster actually strikes is exactly what separates a stressful little inconvenience from a devastating structural and financial loss. So take this step-by-step plan, go locate your main breaker and your water shutoff valves today, and ask yourself, what's your plan for tomorrow?